nightclubs when I was very, very, very young, and that time they were called matinees, and when I first went to the matinee, I felt like it was like I found my place. I loved it, they loved me, everybody loved me, and I felt like, this is where I needed to be. And not long after that, still in my very early teens, I started going to nightclubs, and I would go on a Wednesday, on a Friday, on a Saturday morning, Sunday night. Every opportunity I had, I was in the nightclub. I could not stay away from the nightclubs. I remember, if you know the houses in Newlands East, they had a double story, and I remember standing by my window upstairs, and I would look at the lights at night, and I would need to be there. And I would jump out my window at night, and I would go because I had to be in town. I had to be in the nightclubs, and my parents would kick me out. They would put me out, and I would sleep outside. Most of the night I'd be sleeping, by the door, and I started taking overdoses because I felt like nobody cared, nobody loved me, and I began to get tired. As a young teenager, I was tired of life. I was tired of life already. I didn't want to live anymore as a young girl. And I remember one particular night I would sleep outside. My parents had this house with a yard, and I would sneak in the yard when they were sleeping, and I would sleep at their door, on the mat on their door. And this night I was really tired because most nights I slept outside. My parents didn't have nothing to do with me. I was very young, and you can hear how young I was by the idea I had. I said, tonight I'm going to go to town, I'm going to sell my body for 1,000 rand, I'm going to buy Kentucky, and I'm going to go, there's a place called Newton's in town, and I said, I'm going to go on the ride in Newton's, and then I'm going to kill myself. This was my young plan. So I got up from there very excited about my plan, and I went to hike on the freeway, and I went to town that night, and I walked around town, and this girl met me, this prostitute stopped me on the street, and I became a prostitute that night. As a young teenager, I began to sell my body, and I became a raving alcoholic. I started drinking every single day. I would get paralytic drunk. I would get up with a drink and go to bed with a drink. I'd be so drunk, I started smoking Zol, I started smoking Buttons, Mandrex. I got hooked on crack cocaine, and from there it was like the end. I started doing housebreaking, I started doing robbery. I ended up in Westall prison, and I was in and out of prison from there. I couldn't maintain the place I was staying. I gave birth to 4 children while I was in points from pimps, and then I ended up living in, because the crack, it had me so bad, because all I was doing was hustling for crack. Now I couldn't live anywhere. I went to live in a 10 rand shelter. At that time, the shelters that just opened, the shelters were 10 rand, so it was easy for me. I could sell my body, live in the shelter. The shelter gave you breakfast, lunch, and supper. My kids were fed, and I would walk on the streets, because when you smoke crack, you don't sleep. So I would walk day and night, West Point, Esplanade, St. George's Street, beachfront. I would walk whole day and whole night just hustling for crack. All day, all night, that was my life. In and out of prison, I didn't care, but I was tired. I could feel it myself in my body. I was there till the age of 35 years old, and I was tired. I was tired of a life. I was tired of walking the streets. I was tired of living that life, and I was a raving alcoholic, drug addict. And one night I was in the tavern, and I was drinking, and I don't know, there was people that were speaking about this Jesus, and I was sitting there, and I was drunk. I was paralytic drunk. I don't know how I could hear them talking, but I don't know what happened that night. I can't tell you what happened. I just know how tired I was, and I could hear them speaking about this Jesus, and I became instantly sober. And the next day I got up, and all I could think of is I want to go to church the next day. And the next day I got up and went to church, and the drugs stopped instantly. I was a raving crack and alcoholic, and it stopped immediately. No rehab, no rehabilitation, no psychology, no psychiatrist, nothing. It stopped instantly. I can remember one day I was pulling a rock pipe, and the tears were rolling down my eyes because I was tired of the crack. It had me. I was bound. I didn't care about my kids. I didn't care whether they'd eat every day. All I did was hustle for crack, and Jesus stopped it instantly. Instantly, immediately, I was delivered from drugs, and I've been serving God ever since. Amen.